Welcome to the Cambridge Financial Podcast with Bert Salazar, CEO at Cambridge Financial Partners, LLC. This podcast is all about tax-preferred retirement planning, economics, financial risk management, and achieving a risk-free and successful financial life. Now, your host, Bert Salazar.
Hey, good day, everyone. Welcome to another Cambridge podcast. As always, I'm excited to be here with you, primarily because for me, giving you information and educating my clients is very critical, and obviously my listeners as well. The other reason is that I'm getting calls and emails from any of you asking specific questions about some of the topics that we discuss on these podcasts. And I'm excited because that means that many of you are listening to them, you're paying attention. I'm providing you some information that you may not have received anywhere else. So it makes me feel very good and my firm of the fact that we're providing value to all of you that are listening to these podcasts on a weekly basis. Now, today's going to be an important one because, as you know, one of the major goals that we have here at Cambridge and working with our clients is to make certain that they have a tax-free retirement life. And obviously that's something that I encourage each and every one of my clients, each and every one of you that are listening on this call, to make certain that you try to do every single day, because at the end of the day, if you can live a tax-free retirement life, then you're going to be very successful, and you're not going to have to go through the pain of and suffering of, trying to figure out what taxes are going to be in the future and so forth. Now, from a business standpoint, as many of you know by now, because I try to cover this in many of the podcasts that I conduct, there are only 3 vehicles under the IRS code that will allow you to have a tax-free retirement life. And those are the Roth IRAs, the Roth 401ks, and last but not least, the 7702 plans, which are the ones that are predominantly more challenging to understand, but they're probably the very best when it comes to retirement distribution planning and also tax-free retirement. Now, today what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a comparison between a 7702 plans and traditional 401k plans, because many clients have a tendency to put a lot of money away in 401ks, but it doesn't mean necessarily that that's the best way to go. But they still do it because that's the information they're able to gather in the marketplace. Many of these 401ks are available through your employer, so therefore it's very easily accessible to many of you. By the same token, one of the things that we try to do at Cambridge, and is one of the areas that we, try to enhance when we work with our clients, is, we're true believers in simplify to multiply. When it comes to retirement distribution planning, it can be very complex. But the more simplified your retirement distribution planning becomes, the more time you're going to be able to buy for yourself and your family. And when you buy time, you buy money. And when you buy money, now you have the ability to spend it with the people that you know, love, and care for. So instead of having to spend your retirement life, looking at the stock market every single morning and see what's doing and so forth, and also taking a look at what the laws and what Congress is trying to do with taxation in the future and the impact that those decisions may have on your retirement distribution planning, you can just have the type of life where you can enjoy. You can wake up in the morning, just make sure you do so on the green side of the grass, and try to live as long as you can, because if you have a simplified life from a retirement perspective, you're going to be able to multiply all of the benefits. So in doing so, there are 3 things that we look at very closely. Number 1 is getting our clients to start shifting from looking at their assets through a microscope and have them look at their assets through a telescope. The views are totally different, and through a telescope, you're going to be able to see the impact of your financial decisions, not only on what you have done on that particular case, but on the positive and negative impact that it may have on some of the other assets that you have on the portfolio, or what may be happening on the other side of your financial ledger. Now, the second thing is getting to understand the retirement red zone, which is something that we work with our clients quite often on. And the retirement red zone means that every financial decision that you make 5 years prior to retirement and 5 years post-retirement, that 10-year window that we call the retirement red zone, has a multiplication effect into how your life is going to be in the future. If you make a major mistake, or even minor mistakes can compound significantly against you when it comes to retirement distribution planning and longevity planning in those 10-year period, the 5 before you retire and the 5 after you retire. And then obviously we always try to follow the Warren Buffett rule of investing. He always says that number one rule of investing is never lose the principal of your investment. Rule number 2 is never forget rule number 1. So along those lines, we also want to make certain that if you're going to participate in the stock market, because you may have to for growth, that you don't participate in the stock market without a safety net. And we at Cambridge have the ability to allow you to have the best of both worlds by participating in the stock market returns when they're positive, but also have a safety net where you're not losing your principal in negative years of the market. Now, when it comes to a perfect retirement plan, there are 4 things that if you're able to simplify to multiply, they're going to take you to a much higher level. And the 4 major areas that you need to protect against when it comes to retirement distribution planning are primarily the risk of dying too soon and the impact that would have on your family and your assets, the risk of living too long, which is totally the opposite of dying too soon. You know, if running out of money is bad, your getting old is bad. Getting old and running out of money is even worse. So you want to make certain that you never run out of money before you run out of life. The third area that you need to plan for and you got to plan against is the risk of living with a disability. Yes, people are living a lot longer today, but that doesn't mean they're going to be healthy in retirement. As a matter of fact, husband and wife age 65 today, there's a 75% probability that one of them is going to have a need for long-term care before they die. So the numbers are staggering. The increase in longevity is also staggering, and that's forcing more and more people to have needs for long-term care. And obviously the cost of long-term care is extremely expensive today, let alone 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years from now. And last but not least is living with eroding factors. And what do I mean with eroding factors? Well, you got to make sure that you can protect your assets. And you can protect your assets against a number of different areas and concerns that are always trying to get at your money. So erosion includes, and living with eroding factors includes, taxation, inflation, stock market volatility, interest rate volatility, preponderance to spend and consume, emergencies that you may have. So you need to make certain that you can protect yourself and your family from those risks and that are so critical during your retirement years. So at the end of the day, you want to make certain that if you can simplify to multiply and have those 4 major areas, the risk of dying too soon, living too long, living with a disability, and living with an eroding factors protected, then there's a very, very high probability that you're going to have a very peaceful, very happy, and very comfortable retirement life. Now, because of the fact that I'm going to do a comparison between your 7702 plans and your 401k plans, I have decided to divide the comparisons in 4 stages. And the 4 stages that we're going to be talking about are the contribution stage, the accumulation stage, the distribution stage, and last but not least, the transfer stage. So let's get into the first one, which is the contribution stage. And let's talk a little bit about contribution on both 7702 plans and 401k plans. Now, 401k plans, as many of you know, the contributions are pre-tax. So that means you put money away, the money grows on a pre-tax, or the contributions are made on a pre-tax basis. 7702 plans, contributions are after tax, similar to a Roth IRA and Roth 401k. As a matter of fact, many of my clients call 7702 plan contributions Roth contributions on steroids, and I'll tell you a little bit about why we call it Roth on steroids in a little bit. Now, obviously, 401k plan contributions are limited by law. In 2018, the most that you can put into a 401k is $18,500. Now, it doesn't include the match, but obviously that's the most that you can put away. Now, 7702 plan contributions are limited pretty much by desire. As long as you have the ability and you qualify, if you want to put $100,000 away in a 7702 plan as a supplemental retirement plan, you can do so. As a matter of fact, the vast majority of my clients are putting a tremendous amount of money in 7702 plans. You can put $1,000 a month. You can put $2,000 a month. I have clients of mine putting $10,000 a month or $120,000 a year into a 7702 plan. Now, 401k plan matching contributions by employers are discretionary, so many employers do match and other employers don't, so it's up to them. Now, 7702 plan can have matching contributions by employers as well. Always remember that the underlying features of a 7702 plan has an insurance component, and that can definitely provide some incredible benefits that traditional retirement plans do not. Now, 401k plan assets have also catch-up provisions once you hit the age of 50 or older. Now, in 2018, the most that you can catch up in a 401k is $6,000 a year. So if you turn 50 in 2018, you can put the $18,500 as a regular contribution, and then you can do a match or a catch-up contribution match of $6,000 for a total of $24,500. In a 7702 plan, the catch-up provisions start from day one. Let me give you an example. If you have a plan that would allow for $30,000 off contributions, and you only put 15 in a given year, the following year, not only do you have the ability to put the 30,000 for that year, but you also have the ability to catch up and bring in the 15,000 that you failed to put in the previous year, so you can make a total contribution in the second year of $45,000. And the same thing, if you go 5 years and you're only putting $15,000 and not the $30,000, but in year 5 you really have a really good year in income or business, you do have the ability to put the $30,000 in year 5 plus the $15,000 for year 1, 2, 3, and 4 that you failed to contribute to. So that would allow you to put another $60,000 in year 5 for a total of $90,000. 401k plans do not give you that flexibility of catch-up contributions. Now, let's talk now a little bit about the accumulation stage. We just finished discussing the contribution stage. Now, in the accumulation stage, 401k plan assets grow tax deferred. 7702 plan assets also grow tax deferred. Now, 401k plan assets have, certain IRS tax penalties and guidelines that you need to abide by. They have the 59.5 rule, and they have the 70.5 rule. The 59.5 pretty much says that if you take money out of this plan, unless you meet certain exigent circumstances like death, disability, first-time home buyer, if you take any money prior to age 59.5, the IRS is going to assess you a 10% penalty. At age 70 and a half, you have no choice. You have to start taking what is known as RMDs, or required minimum distributions. And if you fail to do so, you're going to have to pay taxes on the distributions that you should have taken, but you didn't. But you're also going to have to pay a 50% penalty. Yes, you heard me right. It is a 50% penalty. Now, 7702 plans, on the other hand, they have no pre or post tax penalties at all. So in a traditional 401k, you only have 11 years of flexibility in which you can play with your money. So if you live a life of 85 years of age, you only have 11 years out of those 85 in a traditional 401k plan, in which you're going to be able to truly have access to your money in any way, shape, or form that you wish. In a 7702 plan, you have access to your money at all times. So you can take money out prior to age 59 and a half, and there's no taxes or penalties. And you can allow your money to grow past the age of 70 and a half, like you would in a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k, without having to pay federal income taxes. And you don't have to take that money at all if you don't wish to do so. Now, 401k plan assets, you can have access to them through loans and distributions. If you take a loan out of 401k, you got to pay it back within 5 years, and the most that you can take out a loan on a 401k is 50% of your 401k assets, not to increase 50,000. In 7702 plans, you can take loans and withdrawals, but you make the decision, how you take them, how you want to pay them back. Do you want to pay them back? You have all the flexibility in the world in order to do that. Now, 401k plan assets are creditor protected, and that's a very, very good thing. When it comes to 7702 assets, most states have some kind of credit protection. I know the state of Florida has 100% credit protection to 7702 plans, and that's why so many retirees that have a lot of money in 7702 plans, or wealthy clients that have a lot of money in those types of plans, move to the state of Florida, and they do that for one of those major reasons. Now, 401k plan assets can suffer market volatility because there's a stock market volatility exposure. Most 401ks that I review when I conduct audits for my clients are totally exposed to the market, whether they're stocks, bonds, or traditional mutual funds. Now, 7702 plan assets have something that I call volatility risk hedging. That means that the type of planning that we do for our clients under 7702 scenarios, you cannot lose your principal. So you can participate in the market by having a safety net. So therefore, you can get the best of both worlds. You can participate in a percentage of all the gains. But when the market drops, and it will drop, and it drops on a regular basis, then you're not going to suffer any losses. And also, we use other plans that are totally guaranteed as well, and provide dividends, although dividends are not guaranteed, but the guaranteed increase from 1 year to the next based on contractual arrangements are totally guaranteed in nature. All right, so we've talked about the contribution stage. We've talked about the accumulation stage. Now let's talk about the distribution stage, because this is the one stage that is probably the most critical when it comes to distribution planning. Remember, when you get to this stage, it's no longer people at work. Now it's assets at work. And you want to make certain, and you want to maximize the distribution rate of your assets. Also, the rules of engagement change. During your accumulation years and your contribution years, it's all about the rate of return. During your distribution years, it's about the distribution rate of return. So let's talk a little bit about the distribution stage. 401k plan assets are fully taxable as ordinary income. 7702 plan assets are totally tax-free. 401k plan assets can have negative impact on Social Security benefits. And I'm not going to get into a big deal on this, but one of the major areas that we do here at Cambridge, because of our specialty in retirement distribution planning, is that we do provisional income calculations for all our clients, because we provide accounting services, and we're able to assess and determine the tax liability that our clients are going to have in retirement. And if we have enough time, then we have the ability to shift away from taxable vehicles to tax-free incomes, but we have to do it in a certain way. It's not just knowing that you can put money away in Roth IRAs and Roth 401ks and 7702 plans, but also what percentage, what calculations you're going to use, the net present value calculations, and things that are quite interesting to solve for. But when you do, the world is going to change radically for you and for your family for many, many years to come. Now, because of the fact that Social Security benefits get impacted, the challenge with 401k assets is that not only do they impact the distribution on the asset when you take money out of your 401k, but also the amount of money that you take out of a 401k can have a negative impact on the taxation of your Social Security benefits. So now you're compounding the problem. Remember, when you put money away in a 401k, people think that they're saving money. And the answer is negative. You're not saving any money. You're postponing the tax. And when you postpone the tax, you're also postponing the tax liability. So we all understand where taxes are going to be in the future. They're going to be a lot higher than they are today, because we have $21 trillion in debt that keeps growing every single second of every single day. The unfunded liability for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare Part D exceeds $112 trillion. Yeah, you heard me right, trillion with a T. Okay, so the only way that the U.S. government knows how to generate revenues is by increasing taxes. So whenever you postpone your tax, you're also postponing the tax liability. So when you retire in the future, you may have $1 million of retirement asset portfolio, but you really have no clue how much of that actually belongs to you, because what belongs to the IRS will always, always belong to the IRS. Now, 7702 plans have no negative impact on Social Security benefits. As a matter of fact, they are not taken into the financial calculations to figure out if your Social Security benefits are going to be taxed. Because at the end of the day, if the only income that you had coming to you was from Social Security, then you would pay no taxes on those benefits. But if it's not the income of Social Security, it's all the additional income that is coming into play into the provisional income calculation that will determine the taxation of your Social Security benefits in retirement. Now, 401k plan assets tax liabilities are unknown, as I just stated, because no one knows where the taxes are going to be in the future. Although I would argue that based on a very, very high probability, they're going to be a lot higher than they are today. And although we have just gone through some kind of a tax cut through what Trump did in 2017 for 2018 and beyond, remember, all those tax cuts are on the individual side of the house are going to sunset in 2025. So we pretty much have an 8-year window in which to start shifting the right amount of assets, the right amount of taxes, and pay them today, so we can have tax-free retirement from this point forward for the rest of your life. But the window is closing, so you only have 8 years. So don't think and don't wait, because tomorrow is promised to no one, and you have to make certain that whatever you're going to do from a taxable standpoint, you do it today. Now, 7702 plans, on the other hand, have no tax liabilities whatsoever. The contributions are after tax, the money grows tax deferred, and you can pull it out tax free. And what I tell my clients as an analogy all the time is, look, if you were a farmer and you owned a wheat farm, would you rather pay taxes on a few bushels of seeds in the spring, or would you rather pay taxes on truckloads of harvest in the fall? I think all of us are going to want to pay taxes on the seeds and not on the harvest. Now, 401k plan assets provide primarily retirement income. 7702 plan assets, at least the ones that we do here at Cambridge, provide not only for retirement income, but they also provide for Social Security replacement, long-term care protection, asset replacement, and death benefit protection in order to protect a family unit from any premature death at some point in time in the future. Now, lastly, let's get into the transfer stage. So we've talked about the contribution stage, the accumulation stage, the distribution stage, and then obviously the transfer stage that takes place at time of death. Now, 401k plan assets are taxable at death. Now, they're going to be taxable to, that survivor who's going to be assuming that tax liability as a beneficiary. Now, if you happen to be a surviving spouse, you do have options that non-spousal beneficiaries do not have. But ultimately, any dollar that you take out of those assets, whether you happen to be the owner of that asset or the surviving spouse or the beneficiary, the non-spousal beneficiary, will be taxed. And it will be taxed at your ordinary income at some point in time in the future, and no one has been able to determine what those taxes are going to be, and neither have you. So one of the great things that we do at Cambridge is we do tax forward planning to make certain that we can assess what the tax liability is going to be in the next few years and how to prepare you today in order to minimize that liability in the future. Now, 7702 plan assets, on the other hand, and the death benefit assets as well, are tax-free at time of death. So you could have $500,000 in a 7702 plan and $1 million in death benefit. Not only the $1 million in death benefit goes tax-free to your beneficiaries and your surviving spouse, which actually may increment the payout and the value of the asset to begin with, but also the additional $500,000 that you had there in savings will also go tax-free to your beneficiary. Also, bear in mind that 401k plan assets have very strict transfer stage guidelines. So when someone dies, depending on when the death occurred and whether required minimum distributions had already started or not, it determines what processes and what options you as a beneficiary would have in retirement as far as taking those assets and making them part of your portfolio. Now, 7702 plan assets are paid directly to beneficiaries, and the distribution actually bypasses probate. So you don't need to have wills and trust for 7702 plan assets because they do bypass probate. So I have given you a lot of information regarding the pluses and the minuses and the differences between a 7702 plan and 401k plan. Finally, I just want to share with you what I feel are some of the major issues to consider. Issue number one, will taxes be higher, lower, or the same in the future? And I think we've talked quite a bit about why, I feel very strongly, and the vast majority of Americans feel very strongly, that taxes in the future are going to be a lot higher. So if you're going to be in a higher tax bracket in the future, why would you want to postpone the tax today, which would be at a lower rate, and wait to pay it at a much higher rate in the future? Point number two is, will your taxes be higher, lower, or the same in the future? Now, I hear this all the time. Well, Bert, if I'm putting money away and I'm working, when I'm retired, am I not going to be in a lower tax bracket? And my answer is always very simple. The only way you're going to be in a lower tax bracket is if you have been a financial failure for your entire life. And let me explain what I mean by that. When you retire, obviously most of us want our mortgage to be paid for. So when you retire, you're no longer making contributions to your 401k, so you're not taking a tax deduction on that for the year that you're making the contribution. Number two, if your mortgage is paid for, you're not taking any mortgage interest deduction. Number 3, you hope that your kids are going to be out of the house, so obviously you're not going to be able to take any other credits and exemptions. Number 4, if you are making charitable contributions during your working years, there's a very high probability, and there's a lot of literature on that you can read upon, that once you retire, you start to shift away from making monetary contributions to making time contributions, meaning that you may not be contributing as much to your charitable organizations, but you may be spending more time working in those organizations and giving your time and yourself as a charitable contribution instead of a monetary value. So when you start to really figure all of those issues out, and forget about whether taxes are going to be higher in the future or not, there's a very high probability that because of those deductions and exemptions going away when you retire, there's a very high probability that you're going to be either at the same rate that you are today or at a higher level than you've ever been. Remember, if taxes just go up by 1 or 2% in the future, you're better off having paid the tax today as opposed to postponing the tax to sometime in the future. Now, the other point number 3 would be, would you want safety, liquidity, and a good rate of return on your assets? So if you want safety, liquidity, and a good rate of return on your assets, then obviously a 7702 plan is going to be a lot more beneficial than a traditional 401k plan. Point number 4, would you like access to your assets without permission? You see, if you have to ask for permission, then is it really your asset? In a 401k, in order for you to be able to take money out, you have to borrow, and then you have to ask permission to borrow, and then depending on where you're at in life and how much money you need to borrow, the IRS may force certain penalties. Even if you have to take a straight out withdrawal, you're going to have to pay penalties and mandatory penalties that you cannot avoid. So if you want to have access to your money without permission, then a 401k is not the vehicle for you to put money in. Now, many of my clients, when we do our tactical planning through our customized tax-preferred retirement blueprint, they do a combination of both, but they understand how much they need to put into a 401k because we limit those contributions from an economic perspective. Point number 5 would be, would you want your assets to have a multiplier effect during the accumulation, distribution, and transfer stages? And what I mean by a multiplier effect is that you always want every dollar that you invest to be able to either satisfy multiple needs or satisfied and protect against multiple liabilities. So in a traditional 401k plan, normally what happens in a case like that, the money is growing for your retirement income. In a 7702 plan, every dollar that you put in is providing you with a retirement income, is protecting yourself and your family from a premature death, is protecting yourself and your family from a long-term care illness in the future. It's also providing you with certain tax benefits. So every dollar that you put into a 7702 plan would have a much greater leverage and use than if you have it straight into a traditional 401k. And last but not least on that issue is, because of the flexibility and the liquidity of a 7702 plan, you don't have the opportunity cost that you have in a traditional 401k. What if you have an opportunity where you need to take out $100,000 out of a 401k because, there's a property that you can pick up at a pretty good rate of return that you can either flip or you can hold on to it and make some really, really good rate of return on a capital gains basis in the future, which are taxed at a lower rate than ordinary income tax? Well, if you're trying to take that money out of a 401k, you may not be able to do so without having to pay taxes and penalties. In a 7702 plan, you can take all your money away. And as long as you have that protection component in place, you're not going to have have to pay any taxes or penalties for that. So, from a leveraging perspective, that's very critical. Finally, I want to leave you with a call to action, because a lot of the things that we do, we feel very strongly that information without education always leads to failure. But many of the clients that I have engaged over the years, and many of the other people that I've talked to over the years, they suffer from the definition of insanity, which means doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So I know that most of you are going to say, well, Bert, this is a short podcast, and I appreciate the good information that you have provided, but unless you have a call to action and you do something about it, well, tomorrow, will be another day, and life gets in the way, and then obviously you're not going to start. You're not going to think about this anymore. And 5 years from now, you're going to find yourself in the same situation that you are today. So first, I think I encourage you to give us a call. Schedule a 30-minute video conference with us and with me. No cost and no obligation. So this is going to be very critical for all of you to understand. And the worst thing that can happen is you're going to walk away with 30 minutes of information that you've never heard before. And then if you qualify for the type of services that we provide, then we'll be able to offer you a customized tax-preferred retirement blueprint, which is going to take your retirement distribution planning to a level that you have never experienced before and you never thought about before. And there's a very high probability that you're going to be very happy with our services, as the vast majority of our clients truly are. Now, for that, you can also give us a call. You can call us at 786-766-1042. You can also email me at my corporate email address, which is Bert, B-E-R-T Salazar, S-A-L-A-Z-A-R, at Cambridge, F as in Frank, P as in Paul, LLC.com. Or if you want to email me at my personal email address to make it easier for you, it would be Bert, again, B-E-R-T, at bertsalazar.com. You also can feel free to visit our website at www.cambridgefpllc.com. Again, finally, as I always say at the end of every podcast, remember, my goal is to kind of help you change in the way that you see things, because when you change the way that you see things, the things that you see change. Again, have a great day, and I'll look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care. Bye.